And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bub and the Bloom, episode 44. Going to wrap up our ADP analysis, our pockets of ADP with 400 plus gigantic pocket of ADP, but makes sense with, the weirdness of the 400 plus ADPs. If you guys missed our last episode, live stream of the labor draft on Tuesday, make sure you guys check that out as well. But before we get into any more of the semantics, you can find myself on Twitter at BDentric, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod, and my co-host is always on Twitter at RyanBHQ. Ryan, how we doing, my friend?
We're a little tired today. Today was a snow day for my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. So we got we got like 3 inches of snow, which for where I live in Oregon is pretty rare. So everything shut down, and it was me. Everything shut down except for my wife's work. So it was me and the 1 and 3-year-old. So it was fun. They liked the snow. They were playing around and stuff, building snowmen. But they definitely ran me through the ringer, I should say. So I'm doing well, but the prep wasn't full for this one, but we'll be fine. I think it's probably more karma from my bachelor party last weekend that I had to got the kids today with the snow day. So
yeah, you left her for like 3 days, and you're leaving pretty soon to go to Georgia. So I think you're
let's not good. Talk about that one yet. Let's give it a little more time to pass.
So yes. I think we're good on those fronts. But yeah, a little snow day would be cool. I'd be down for a snow day. I'm just might have a rainy day schedule tomorrow. I don't know what snow days are like, so that would be fun for sure. But yeah, the draft was fun. Do you have any thoughts? We're like 2 days past the labor draft. Any positives or negatives?
Not really. I've got a recap coming out tomorrow on HQ. I don't know. Still regretting that Cody Bellinger pick, but it was fun, man. It was a blast just to have so many people commenting, hanging out. Wouldn't change it for the world. It was a ton of fun. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We have your tout draft in a couple weeks, so that'll be fun as well. We would do my tout draft, but apparently 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern on a Tuesday is a good idea, so we won't be streaming that one. Unfortunately,
we would. These can't just be all my drafts, but
you got the preferred schedule.
I got the right time slots. Yeah, the tout wars. So I'm in the last few years. I've been in the AL only auction, but I can't make it over to New York this year, mostly because of that Georgia trip you just talked about, Bubba. I'm going to the Masters in first week of April. So I'm in the tout mixed 15-team draft. So March 7th, Tuesday night, I think around 8 p.m. Eastern. So I think we'll plan to just kind of do the same thing we did for labor. So why not?
Rock and roll the same way. It'll be fun. OBP instead of average. So I'll throw people for a curveball. So
including me.
We'll have some fun with that and see where it goes. But we got a little bit of news here. I think we'll have more next week because we have some games starting up on Friday, Saturday around the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League. We're seeing guys, pitching and doing live BPs and stuff. So I think we'll get some more news coming. We have a little bit here. Elvis Andrus, after all the drama, all the speculation, like go to the Red Sox, go do this, because he goes back to the White Sox for like a $3 million deal, like super cheap. Like, Craig, why Boston did you get out of Berkeley Mondesi? Why? What are we doing here? So Elvis Andrus goes back, and he's slated to be the starting second baseman right now. So anybody that took chances on him early in these drafts, you're looking real nice right about now. Just because of his price tag, not because I'm not expecting the same production as last year. Let me clarify that real quick.
No, exactly. Like, you struck gold with Elvis Andrus, relative gold. Like, he's not going to be a first rounder or fifth rounder, whatever. You struck gold because this, I mean, for Andrus specifically, like his fantasy value, I can't think of a better place. I mean, he's going back to somewhere where he's familiar at least half a season, and he's going to play. Like, he's going to be their second baseman. There is that. I actually, just before the show, I updated because at HQ we do our subtle plug here. We do our daily updated playing time projections. And so I just wanted to see where Andrus' value went up. And we took him from like a part-time player to full-time. Little bit of bump in the counting stats. Andrus, right? So now the question is like, right, I mean, it's great news for him, but how great of the news is it? So when I put Andrus in the projections, he's still like at second base. He's still behind Colton Wong, Bryson Stott, and the kind of group of guys that we both really like your India, Brandon Lowe, like those guys are still way ahead of Elvis Andrus. So I wouldn't go overboard and definitely would not extrapolate Andrus's stats with the White Sox last year. I think that was just lightning in a bottle. He was hitting leadoff every day, which he's not going to do at least to start 2023, unless Tim Anderson gets hurt. So for kind of all those reasons, like I still see Andrus as maybe a middle infielder in a 15-team league if you're going late. But I'd still even probably take like Colton Wong over Elvis Andrus right now.
Yeah, I guess if you want that, I guess Wong still steals bases too, so that's not that big a deal. But you got Andrus ADP 376 over the last 10 drafts, so that's not bad. He's got as high as 317 probably since he signed. One of those drafts would be my guess. But yeah, he's going in a range where we have some guys we have been taking as starters, like you mentioned. So don't go crazy with him. But a couple weeks back, a month back, you're getting him in the 400s and 500s at times. So you're definitely sitting much prettier having a backup. He'll get second base eligibility to go with the shortstop eligibility, which will be primo for your draft champions leagues, because I doubt you took him in any like OCs or anything like that right now. So it's a nice little find and a great spot for him to land in, as you said. Robbie Grossman, if the Rangers outfield situation wasn't confusing enough with a couple extra arms and bodies around there, let's throw Robbie Grossman into the mix, who a couple years ago had an amazing season with Detroit, then scuffled, then went to Atlanta, was a little bit better, not great. Now he signs a deal with the Texas Rangers, who already have Leody Taveras in center. You have Adolis Garcia in right, but you have, Mark Mathias could be an option. They had other options that I think like going to get stuck in the minors now because of Robbie Grossman, like Bubba Thompson. That was the one that I was looking for, the name. This Robbie Grossman signing has.
How could you not list Bubba first, man?
Because all he does is run. He's the opposite of me. So
every now and then I see. I think I commented one last year
Vlad
about, because everyone just calls him Bubba, and everyone talks about how fast Bubba is. And it's. I hold myself back.
Only time I'm that fast is when there's high names at the bar at the FPAS hotel. Then we're good.
I've seen that sprint speed. It's actually pretty impressive.
But what's your thoughts on Grossman here? Because we've seen him be fantasy viable at times. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but if they're going to slot him into play in an improved lineup, his ADP is 601, as high as 451 over the last 10. So that's probably post signing as well. The 451 still isn't bad for an everyday outfielder. So what's your thoughts on Robbie Grossman?
I still think you stay away, and like, yeah, maybe if you want to go with like a post 500 pick on Grossman, sure, but like for the reasons you mentioned, all the names that you just mentioned, Bubba, there's just so much competition, and Robbie Grossman's honestly really even not that great. I mean, the 2020 season is like 2 years ago, so there is that, but I feel like it was just a perfect storm of playing a little bit over his head and getting everyday playing time on Detroit. Like, that's not going to happen with Texas. And I think if anything, Grossman is maybe a short side platoon against lefties. He's a little bit better against lefties than righties. And given the really, like, I don't know, the youth on some of the alternatives, I'm surprised Texas would do this, but I think they need to see what they have with some of these other guys. So I think this was just a depth move. I don't think fantasy wise this does anything for me.
Yeah, it was a surprise out of all the teams to do it, but the Rangers keep spending, they keep adding depth, they're trying to make it interesting, let's put it that way. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. This one's got some legs to it. We've already been worried about Lance McCullers and his injury history. We've all mentioned that many times. He's already got a setback. He's already not going to be ready for opening day. Who knows when he'll actually be ready? They have dates, but hey, he was supposed to be ready for spring training, and that hasn't happened. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But what it does do, Mr. Bloomfield, is it opens the door for one Hunter Brown, who we've been speculating on all draft season. As you know, at some point this year, he's going to get in there because of injuries, this, that, and the other. Didn't think it'd happen this soon. But 246 ADP over the last 10 drafts. That baby is going to keep climbing.
And I think climbing to a point where I'm not interested. I think the hype is just going to be. So I had Hunter Brown's forecaster box. And so we kind of deep dive the skills on that, not even worrying about playing time back in, October for the upcoming season. And like, yes, so I say all this, and yes, he's on the Astros, and yes, they know what they're doing. He's probably going to get a bunch of wins, this sort of thing. I just wasn't as impressed with the skills in the upper minors with Hunter Brown. Like the whiffs weren't really there in AAA and weren't really there in a very brief stint. 20 innings last year in the majors. Brown had a 10% swing strike rate. That's pretty much well below league average. There is the ground ball rate, which is nice. He's a 50% ground ball guy in the upper minors, but I just think folks are going to get very much carried away and shoot the draft price for Hunter Brown. I don't know, maybe like 175 ish. And there's just some other options that I like more than Brown. So if you got Brown, kudos. And we talk about this. I mean, this is example 600 of us talking about a six starter that's going to get a role. This is what happens. One other name I'll just absolutely throw out there, since this is the 400 plus ADP episode, is long lost Forrest Whitley. Injuries everywhere, was once one of the top pitching prospects, if not the unanimous top pitching prospect in baseball. He's not too far. Forrest Whitley is from a rotation spot in Houston. Again, 600th pick, whatever. That's a name I'm a little bit more interested in. Just it's one less obstacle.
He's been taken in one draft out of the last 10. I'm assuming that's after the Lance McCullers news. ADP of 741.
So you're taking him 50th.
End game.
Yep.
So
I would do it.
He'll probably
maybe I was higher. That one. I don't. Maybe.
Yeah. I have a hunch he's going to go higher as people keep speculating with this news, especially if McCullers gets another setback, which would not surprise me, unfortunately. The way
so with McCullers, what's your take on McCullers? Are you just?
I was already off him to begin with because I was concerned. Like I kept saying, he needs to have an opener for him, or he needs to just be a long man out of the pen. I was not even close to drafting McCullers at any point in time, and I love Lance McCullers. It wasn't happening. And this is just even more to it. This is the negative side of things. It's like, I kind of wish this didn't happen because people would still draft him and I wouldn't have to worry about it. But now he's just off the board for many.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, he was a no draft for me. One guy I want to ask you about is Yordan Alvarez, who's having lingering hand issues again, like he had last year, and he battled through it and had an amazing season, as we know. He said he's going to take a few days off and come back to the cage and try to work through it again. There's other reports saying that eventually he's going to have surgery at some point in time. Why he didn't do it in the offseason, no idea. But maybe it felt good while he was sipping Mai Tais on a beach. I have no clue. But what's your thoughts on this? Because right now it's not affecting his ADP. Right now he's not expected to miss a ton of time. But a lingering hand injury does not sound great for the 9th overall pick.
And that's the thing. And from what I've heard, he has tried to rest the hand. He has then tried to swing, and it flares back up again. So there's just some little pieces to this that get me concerned, to the point where why wouldn't I just take, if I have a first round pick, why wouldn't I just take Vlad or Mookie Betts or whoever there are elite alternatives where Yordan's going. The flip side of this, and neither of us obviously are not doctors. We don't know. Nobody knows how this is going to turn out. We don't even know how accurate the information is that we're being given by the team and reporters and that sort of thing. That all said, it's all up to how much risk you want to take on. If Yordan Alvarez drops to the wheel in a 15-team league, 15 or 16th overall, where your alternatives are maybe Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado, that's where that's probably where I'd take the jump and go with Alvarez. Because there is a decent chance this is just what it is, some soreness in February, and the dude will be fine. Yordan Alvarez, remember, totally different body part, but we were all completely freaked out about his knees 2 years ago, and he did Yordan Alvarez things last year. So could very much turn out to be nothing. But for me, if I have a top 10 pick, I'm just going to go with an alternative that I don't have to worry about right now.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now, which really sucks because I've been all in on Yordan as a first rounder if you had that kind of spot in the draft. And Now it's kind of like, yeah, it's not as warm and fuzzy, and I want warm and fuzzy in the first round. I know a lot can change. Anybody can get hurt at any given time, but I don't like the idea of drafting a guy that's already hurt. That's why we've kind of been off on Tatis for the most part. It's like he's still saying the wrist isn't 100%. Like it's just concerning in little situations like that with an early draft pick where I can take those chances at a later date and time. So we'll see. Kind of curious to see how this news keeps coming out with Yordan. That's a big bummer if it turns into something bad. Kyle Wright having shoulder issues, supposed to throw a bullpen potentially this weekend. We'll see. But this one kind of came out of nowhere, like most of these injuries do, and he could get a slow start to the season, maybe miss a couple starts to start the season if things keep getting pushed back. So, what are your thoughts on Kyle Wright right now?
This one sounds like one of those where he's kind of just delayed and should be fine. It sounds like this cortisone shot or whatever was taken a little while ago, like not like this week. And so we're just hearing about it now. This kind of smells like the Zach Wheeler, Luis Castillo examples from last year that we've been talking about, where maybe things are delayed, maybe a start or two is missed early in the year, but over the course of the season, not too worried about it. So, obviously wait and see, but like if I'm drafting right now and actually tying this back to labor, Fred Zinke, I don't know if he intended to do this, but he said this on the RotoWire podcast on their stream during the show. He took like DeGrom, Strider, took Kyle Wright. It took Starling Marte. He's kind of taking the strategy of buying the discount on these guys who have what he thinks are minor and probably are minor things in February that's dropping the ADP, and by March they'll be fine. I think that's the case with Wright. Let's see what he does when he actually throws in simulated games, real games, whatever.
Well, we're either going to be right or wrong on this one, so we'll have to see how it goes.
That's two right puns. That's
Yep. I'm here all weekend. Don't you worry. No snow days for me, so I keep them coming. Let's go on to Brian Bayo. I'm not even going to say the pun I had lined up there just for you. You're welcome. This was a little bit concerning. He's a little setback through on flat ground on, I believe, Wednesday. So there was some positive news there. Felt great, but he tweaked it. Like he started getting arm discomfort, throwing forearm discomfort, which is never good, at a bullpen session over the weekend. So he threw off a flat ground on Wednesday. We'll see how things go this weekend with him. Definitely leaves me more concerned than I'd like to be.
And I had to crack up. Like he threw off flat ground, but the report was, or the tweet or video was, he threw off flat ground like a few feet closer to the catcher than his teammates. That's the kind of information we're getting at this early stage of spring training. I don't know. You're the big Bayo guy. I'm not as excited, and this doesn't obviously help. So I'm pretty much off of Bayo.
Yeah, it's putting a halt to my love for now. Like we're just gonna be friends and see how this goes.
You're gonna wait it out, and
we're just gonna put this one on pause for a bit. Not see other people yet, but just kind of see how things go.
Does he know this?
If he's a listener, so he's going to know. If not, his brother's a big time listener, I believe, or his mom or dad or somebody. So they'll let him know. The Bayos, we go back, so it's cool. It's on hold for me. We got to see how this one plays out. Miguel Vargas, we're all pumped up. Second base, the man for the Dodgers, and then he fractured finger. He's taking defense, but he's not swinging yet because he can't fully grip a bat. So that's kind of interesting to me. They're saying everything's going to be fine by opening day. I'm not super worried about a fractured finger at this point in time, but what about you?
The only thing that I'm a little worried about in one of the RotoWire blurbs, but they were citing one of the Dodgers reporters, and Dave Roberts suggested, I'm quoting RotoWire at this point, suggested that it may come down to a matter of pain tolerance on the part of the 23-year-old. So that doesn't give me the warm and fuzzy at all. You kind of have to trust LA's staff that if they are putting Miguel Vargas out there, even for defense, they don't think it's that big of a deal. So it's probably not. And they are obviously very high on Vargas, giving him the second base job. I know they have Rojas to kind of back up everywhere in between, but I don't know. It's probably nothing. Yeah,
that's where I'm leaning right now. I'm trying to stay positive on some of this, and that's one of them is probably nothing is where I'm going to go. I'm going to stick with that until more news comes out. I think he was going to try to hit this weekend, so we'll keep an eye on that. Like you said, it's pain tolerance, so we'll see how that plays out. A couple more here. Drew Waters was supposed to be the starting center fielder for the Kansas City Royals. He has a left oblique strain, and he's going to be out for 6 weeks. This is a pretty big left oblique strain. If we're talking 6 weeks here. Kyle Isbell is supposed to be the favorite to land the center field spot, but there's chances Nate Eaton, Edward Olivares, and others rotate through there. Olivares should already be playing in a different outfield position, but it opens up the Eaton door a little more, and Isbell maybe regular playing time. How are you assessing this if you have any interest at all?
A little bit interested in Kyle Isbell. I think he's the clear playing time winner, at least to start. Isbell has so the K rate's an issue. Kyle Isbell has a 27% K rate, but you look at some of the plate discipline metrics that Isbell had last year, single digit swinging strike, didn't chase too much. So I don't think he's over his head in the majors, and the power metrics, 45% hard hit. He had a max EV over 111 miles an hour. He's got some pop and he runs. So I'm interested in Kyle Isbell. I'm also actually buying the dip a little bit on Drew Waters, because if you are out for 6 weeks and that's truly what the timeline is, that's only a week or two. And I think late drafted, I'm talking just draft and hold basically at this point, that's really nothing. And so if Drew Waters falls quite a bit, I would not mind at all taking a shot at Waters just for missing 2 weeks. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, his ADP over the last 10 drafts, 423, as low as 539. So you're definitely get him at a freebie price potentially. And by the way, it's fun looking at some of these picks we've made because it shows our early draft where guys were taken on the right-hand side. And Mr. DiPietro took him at 308. I have one.
Our first DC.
I took Patrick Wisdom at 386. His ADP's 427. There's some fun ones here. Some big time. Oh boys.
My Braxton Garrett pick stands alone, I think.
Yeah, yours. That's impressive. Impressive.
But no, that news is a bummer because for Rob D, Waters, I still am obviously very high on for this year. I think he's going to play every day when he's healthy.
Definitely some nice appeal from Waters. Last but not least here, Aaron Ashby. He actually spoke to the media about his shoulder injury and the severity of it. And he's saying if all goes well, wanted to say that all goes well, be back by mid-May. So that's about mid-season, not quite all-star. Well, it's the second month of the season, I guess, April, May. I would say more Jason Klett always says throw a couple weeks onto these guys' projections. Let's say beginning of June. Let's just say that because he's got to ramp up. He's going to have to do a lot of stuff. I'm thinking June-ish. What does that do for you on the Aaron Ashby front, who, when it comes to DCs, still has an ADP of 405. He's got as high as 265 in some draft, which is bonkers to me. But what are your thoughts on Ashby?
It's a bum. I mean, I've talked about Ashby. That combination of ground balls and strikeouts is pretty rare. But there is that glaring issue of walks and being efficient in games, and then you throw a shoulder injury on top of that. I think even if Ashby comes back in mid-May or June, I could see Milwaukee doing a 2 to 3 inning role. They kind of did that with Ashby a little bit last year anyway. So from a fantasy standpoint, I'm kind of completely out on Ashby now. I mean, in labor, we talked about drafting these injured guys because you have IL slots and you can stash them. I think that's fine, near the end of a draft if your league has that flexibility. But certainly in an NFBC Fab League, he's undraftable. Even in a draft and hold, I'm probably waiting until the 35th round, and someone else is probably going to snatch him.
Yeah, it's bye-bye Ashby. We'll do this again next season. Hopefully you're healthy for that ride. All right, let's do it. ADP 400 plus over the last 10 draft champions. We're going to give a couple hitters we like, a couple pitchers we like. Then we got a couple bloom boards that highlight some of these hitters and pitchers. So we are trying not to use targets that are within the board, so we didn't cover guys multiple times. So keep that in mind.
Those were my rules. I said, Bubba, you can't pick anyone going in the top 400 I also have these 2 bloom boards of like 50 more guys. You can't pick any of them. And you probably looked at it and were like, Jesus, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys I wanted on those bloom boards. So
We'll talk about them.
this is gonna make for some fun conversations as expected. But we'll start with you, Mr. Bloomfield. Who is one of the hitters you are looking to target in past ADP 400?
I'm going to be hanging with Mr. Cooper here and taking.
Look at you. Look at you. God, I'm rubbing off on you. It's beautiful.
Taking someone who is an everyday first baseman and probably hitting cleanup in Miami. Garrett Cooper has hit 280 in 3 of the last 4 years. Garrett Cooper has a double-digit barrel rate in each of the last 3 years. And again, he has the playing time. So this is not just like he's going to play, he'll fill a spot. I actually think Garrett Cooper is good. I think he could go 280 and give you 20, 25 home runs. I mean, the rub with Garrett Cooper has always been health, but he's healthy right now, and that's good enough for me. So Garrett Cooper's an absolute smash for me outside of the top 400s. The skills and a role at this stage of the draft is pretty rare to find.
Yeah, I love Garrett Cooper. I almost picked him on one of mine, and I'm glad you did. I think he's awesome. One day it's going to click. So keep taking advantage of that ADP. I'm 100% with you on Mr. He's got to stay healthy. That's all it really is. Just play a full season. Just do it. My first one is Brice Turang. This is a guy I've targeted in many drafts. Shortstop eligibility, is going to likely play every day, or at least a strong side of a platoon at second base, taking the Colton Wong role. So he'll gain second base eligibility as well, coming in with an ADP of 418. In the minors, he's 34 steals last year at 13 home runs, hitting 286. He's shown decent batting average skills throughout most of the minors, but more importantly, over a 10% walk rate throughout almost every stop in the minors with 20% or less strikeout rate over the last couple of years, which is a really, really nice thing to see with young players. We talk about guys that strike out too much in the minors, how that translates to the bigs. He doesn't. So even if he takes a kind of a step back in the strikeout department, still a very, very strong upside play from Brice Turang. So I'm a fan of what he's got going on. He's going to be 23 years old, super young, tons of speed, pop starting to develop, goes and plays in Milwaukee. Like I said, strong side of the platoon. There's some people that think he'll play pretty much all the time, just maybe get a few days off. We'll see. And if he plays all the time at that kind of ADP as your third, maybe even fourth shortstop, I'm a big fan of that. He's just a depth piece at this point in time in drafts, but he's got the ability to maybe be one of those rookies that has a big impact this season. So Brice Turang is a guy I've been targeting quite a bit.
Yep, it makes sense. For me, it's hard to figure out Milwaukee's infield. They just have a lot of moving pieces. Like, where is Luis Urias going to play? Like at HQ, we've got Luis Urias over Turang, like a 50-30 playing time split. But
I think he's going to play third base.
Yeah, he could very well and probably should go to third base. Maybe we have Brian Anderson a little too much. I don't know. Like I said, there's so many moving
when Anderson
parts.
got signed, it kind of screwed things up a little bit. That signing was, I don't know what was going on there.
I get it. I absolutely get it. They can move folks around. And Milwaukee, we talked about, I don't know, we probably listed Sal Frelick somewhere. We talked a lot about Sal Frelick. I took him in labor at the end of the draft. Like, there's a lot. They just have a lot of bodies with some pretty good skills. So that's a camp to absolutely hone in on this spring training.
Yeah, big fan. It's one of those teams. I've made the joke, like we talked about stacking teams in the past, like the Jays. If you did it a few years ago, you can stack Milwaukee for cheap, like Adames, Tellez, Yelich. If you just want a mini stack, you can do that cheap. You could add on to it with William Contreras. Like, there's a lot you could do, and if you believe they're going to be productive, it's going to be a really nice look. But that's a whole nother situation. Who's your next hitter?
All right, forgotten man, a guy that folks were spending, and I don't mean to say this to laugh. They're spending a lot of fab money on this guy for a reason last year, like $300, $400 when he was called up with the Rays. That's Josh Lowe. Josh Lowe has been completely forgotten about. Josh Lowe, and for semi good reason. He looked terrible in the majors last year. He struck out in a third of his plate appearances, hit 221. Didn't get much better in AAA, had a 33% K rate in AAA, but in AAA had 14 homers, 25 steals. Josh Lowe is the ultimate, did not succeed in his first, I don't want to say cup of coffee, but his first prolonged exposure against major league pitchers, and he has just been completely forgotten about. Now, Josh Lowe does not have a job at the moment in the Rays outfield. I don't believe. And so that's why he's going outside the top 400. I mean, all these guys have warts, but if you're speculating on a guy that this time 1 year ago, very smart players in the NFBC were spending hundreds of dollars on Fab when he got called up, a consensus top 40 prospect. I think HQ had Josh Lowe around 30th overall. That power speed combo, there are very few players with that power speed ceiling going outside of the top 400. So yes, Josh Lowe could do absolutely nothing this year, but in a draft and hold or your last pick in a 15 team or something, the skills were there a year ago. Why, they're still there now.
Yeah, he's a fun one. Like when I had Collette on to talk about the Rays, he was an interesting topic because he's even like torn on it. He agrees with everything you said, and he's just trying to be like, where are they going to put him? That's the only concern because they have so many moving pieces. But he does agree with you that, like, if you're going to spec on a dude, why would you give up on Josh Lowe? Like, he's still that talented dude that everybody wants. So it's an interesting spot to spec. I don't disagree with that at all. And there should be a point in time where he does get a good run with the Rays and see how it goes. For me, I go to Baltimore, to Kyle Stowers, who doesn't have to worry about the extended fence in left field because he's a lefty, and he'll be on the strong side of the DH platoon, could get a good run at the DH. He had 3 home runs in 98 plate appearances with the Orioles last year, hitting .253. He's shown really good pop in his recent years in the minors, decent averages, good plate discipline. Didn't show the plate discipline as much in the bigs last year, but in the minors, he's always had pretty strong plate discipline. And what I really, really like to see from a guy that I'm taking at 450 and beyond for the power department is small sample, yes. 110.1 max EV, 11.3% barrel rate, and 50% hard hit rate from this kid in his first, like you said, cup of coffee or maybe cup of coffee in the bigs. First run in the bigs. Going to be 25 years old. Like, there's a lot to like about Kyle Stowers, like legit fantasy appeal. If he could play regularly, he's supposed to DH, can play the outfield if necessary. They don't really have a DH. That's the thing. So it could be his to run with if he makes it work. And that could be tremendous at this ADP. If he plays a full season, like, projections have him playing 86 games and still hitting, like the Bad X has him hitting 10 home runs, ATC has him hitting 13 in less than 100 games. Go give him 130 games. We're talking 20-plus home runs potentially. That's pretty nice. Pretty nice at that point in the draft. With a batting average that won't kill you. Like the projections batting averages are way too low for me. 220 to 230. Dude's hit 250-plus everywhere he's been, and I don't see how the profile, like even the XBA last year was almost 270. So he's shown really good bat-to-ball skills, and I think that's a fun ad at post 450 ADP.
For some reason, I thought Stowers, didn't have a job, but he absolutely does. I mean, he should at least. Baltimore's outfield is not. I mean, you've got Austin Hayes and Mullins who are pretty much locked in, but after that, it's pretty much Stowers and Santander, and Santander probably DHs quite a bit. So I like it. I'm not as rosy on you and it's easy to nitpick all these guys on the batting average. Stowers has had a 30% K rate at pretty much every stop in the minors, despite hitting 275, 283. So maybe he is one of those, and he hits the ball so damn hard. Maybe he's just one of those super high BABIP guys. So we'll see. I like it though. That those hard hit numbers, those power skills, completely jump off the page.
Yeah, jump in a big way. Now let's head to the mound, where if we want to talk murky waters, this is where stuff gets fun. Yeah. What are you seeing as a starting pitcher you want to target back here? Because especially when we couldn't list off some guys on a Bloom board, that had the best pitchers on it, by the way, by far. So who do you have here?
All right, so we'll run. I'm
kidding.
We'll go quick. Bailey Falter. I think I've talked about him a couple times throughout the episodes or on the show, previous episodes. Just love the second half improvements that kind of corresponded with the pitch mix change for Falter. I don't know if he starts the season in Phillies rotation. There is this Andrew Painter guy who very well could steal that 5th spot. But for the reasons we just talked about, with who we're talking about, the 6th starter,
Houston, Hunter Brown.
Thanks. I think Falter will fall into a role at some point, and I just I like the skills. I think I'd rather take him. I'd rather take Falter, who may not have a job but has skills, over like a Johnny Cueto, who I don't even know if Johnny Cueto is going around this late, but who I think is just going to torture ratios and pitch, which you absolutely don't want. So Falter's a guy I've been targeting. I like him.
Yeah, no, I see there's a lot to like with him at that ADP. I've been kind of circling him in certain drafts as well, so don't hate that. Even if Painter comes up, like you said, there's going to be a spot for Falter at some point in time, so wouldn't worry too much about that. And that's why my first starting pitcher is a 6-starter as well, and David Peterson, who big fan of. We've talked about him many times. The strikeout skills got even better last year with the pitch mix change up to almost 28% strikeout rate. Spin the walks with him, another 10.6% walk rate. He's been over 10% all 3 years. But with the strikeout rate increasing, the walks have not been as big of an issue, just for the fact he keeps the ball in the ballpark as well because of a ground ball rate that is pretty nice. But whip will hurt you. Strikeouts have been great. And in the time he had last year, 105 innings pitched, 3.83 ERA, 3.31 xFIP. So he's improved every season that he's been with the Mets. I would foresee a good chance for David Peterson to get some time in the rotation throughout the year when you have guys like Verlander and Scherzer and Carrasco, who we love. And let's not forget Senga, whose innings are in question, Quintana. There's going to be some guys needing some rest in New York. So David Peterson should get his fair share of starts, and I'm a big fan of him.
Upside in the forecaster for Peterson of a 3.50 ERA and 160 Ks. So I'll sign off on that.
All right, who's your next one?
Kyle Muller, I think, is very much underpriced. I think Kyle Muller, yes, there's injury risk. The control's a little bit shaky. He's got the stuff. Kyle Muller absolutely has 2 breaking balls that are pretty elite. I think he's going to pitch pretty much all year in Oakland. Probably not get very many wins, but that's a perfect park to pitch in. And just the scouting reports on Muller are fantastic. He just needs to stay healthy, and he'll be a great buy this late. So Muller is my guy here, and I've gotten him on a lot of draft and holds late.
All right, I got to find the new pitcher because I guess when I was doing this earlier, I thought Mitch Keller was post 400 ADP. He is not. He is 377. So we
can, or you can just pick someone from the board.
No, one other guy I almost picked anyways was Spencer Turnbull. I just wanted to bring him up.
Oh, wow,
at 454. There's been quiet reports, but not a ton. He's supposed to be ready to go this season after the injury because he missed all of last season after getting TJ the previous season. So he's had that extra rest time that we like to see, kind of how Verlander-esque, one would say. I'm not saying by any means he's Verlander or he can get that many innings. He threw 50 innings into one. What was that?
Video clip. I'm going to take that one, Verlander.
He pitched 50 innings in 2021. Then he got hurt, missed all of 2022. He's supposed to be ready to rock and roll. He's going to be 30. So it's one of those guys that I don't foresee them limiting him a ton if healthy, which they say he is. So I'm thinking 130, 140, maybe 150. If you get there, as high as he's ever had was 148. But I think 130 is very much in play. His ratios have improved every year before he got hurt. His pitch mix changes have been much better. The walk rate was down to 6% before he got hurt. Obviously, we haven't seen him in a while, so who knows what it is. But before he got hurt, he was on his way to being a very usable fantasy pitcher, especially in deeper formats. So at an ADP at 454 in a pitcher's ballpark, I'm in on a guy like Spencer Turnbull, hoping he can rebound and be ready to rock and roll for this season.
Yeah, he was Turnbull was a sexy kind of breakout sleeper, whatever word you want to use, before the injury. I did not realize he was going to be ready by opening day. I've learned something.
Yep, he's going to be. For once, I could help people. Just remember that. This guy. No, just kidding. Relievers. We each picked one reliever. Honestly, there's a bunch of spec options down here. This is like the world of spec relievers. So it was tough to pick just one. I'm going to be honest. And if anybody's listening and goes, "Why didn't you pick this guy?" Well, they were all pretty much in play. So just realize that. So who's your top reliever option here?
It's Matt Brash for me. I think Matt Brash has his repertoire. That slider is so good. I think Seattle might, just because he's so young, maybe see what they have with Brash in the rotation at some point. But Matt Brash's skills in the bullpen the second half for Seattle were fantastic. There's a little bit of uncertainty towards the end of Seattle's bullpen. I know early reports on Andres Munoz have been positive, so there's that. But Seattle mixes and matches closers, and I think Matt Brash could absolutely get in that rotation. That ninth inning rotation pretty quickly. He just needs to do what he did last year in the bullpen. So Brash is, yeah, you're right. One of many really good save specs that probably most of them won't work out, but that's why they're going this late.
Yeah, I like the Brash shout because he was filthy when he came back and went straight to the bullpen. So if God forbid anything happened to the 7 guys in front of him, he could be an absolute stud because they just have so many freaking relievers there. It's crazy how good they are. But then again, when you're picking him, you're not just the one thing I guess to say for DCs and stuff. These late relievers, they don't have to just be closer guys. These guys could be guys that give you 2 to 3 innings here and there. Brash could be that guy that gets 3 appearances throughout a week, throws 3 2/3, gets like 7 strikeouts, and just helps you in ratios. Maybe snags a win. That wouldn't be a shocking thing because as guys get hurt throughout the year, guys like Matt Brash are very important to your team. So wanted to mention that as well. These aren't just save guys. That's the thing. Mine's going to be Hunter Harvey because I got to just basically put my money where my mouth is. That's where I've been banging this drum for a long time. You have Kyle Finnegan, who we talked about in the labor feed. We were okay with him at his ADP as like an extra closer potential guy. They have Carl Edwards Jr. The reality of the situation is Hunter Harvey's better than Carl Edwards when healthy. Might be better than Kyle Finnegan if he's really on his game.
Exactly.
He might be better than Carl. Like, let's be real about it. Might be better than Finnegan. But the thing is the Nats are just tanking and tanking. They're going to trade Finnegan if he's any good. They're going to trade Carl Edwards if he's any good. Opens the door for Hunter Harvey to maybe get like 7 saves out of the 20 wins they get in the second half of the season. I don't know. But his talent's legit. I've been a huge Harvey fan. He used to be a top elite prospect for the Orioles. As they say, quote unquote, pedigree is there. So give me a chance with Harvey at his ADP. I'm drafting him in all these leagues that I'm in super, super late. ADP of 531. I'll take a chance on that all day long.
Yep, makes sense.
All right, let's do Bloom board time. I'll let you explain the first one here. We got some hitters post 400 ADP.
All right. I tweeted this out, and we'll tweet this from the podcast account Friday morning when the episode's out for most of you who are listening. 2 Bloom boards, and I did both of these post 400 ADP to kind of fit the theme of the episode. 1 hitter, 1 pitcher. With hitters, like I'm just trying to find stuff that maybe other people are not looking at. Like everyone's looking at strikeout rate and hard hit rate and that sort of thing. What I did with this is I took, and I've always struggled a little bit with using like plate discipline metrics. They get cited a lot. I haven't found like one kind of golden plate discipline metric, like even chase rate or swing strike rate for hitters that are all that predictive in a vacuum. One that I included on this board, it really is the ethos of this thing, is combining 2 plate discipline metrics, and that's your swing rate in the zone minus your chase rate. And so it's basically, I just made up a term for it called pitch selection. It's basically how often you're swinging when you should be swinging minus how often you should not be swinging. So you kind of take those 2 together. Rob DiPietro has cited this quite a bit in the past. Eno Saris has done a little bit of work on this. Those are 2 guys that I absolutely trust with plate discipline metrics. So what I did was I took anybody going outside the top 400 with a above average, and league average for this pitch selection is 40%. Anybody higher than 40%. And then on top of that, so it's not just about swinging or not swinging, it's do you have power? So put barrel rate on top of that. So came up with, I don't know, these are maybe like 20 names of guys with above average pitch selection, above average power. And those are 2 things. Again, if you're just looking for guys in the post 400 realm, this is a pretty decent foundation of skills to look at. So
I love it. It's actually really cool to see it this way. Maybe this could be a future stat at Baseball HQ or something. Just throwing it out there, Ryan. You can patent this thing right now. It could be something rolling your way. But I do think it's broken, though, because there's 4 Giants on this board. and that just doesn't fly with the with all things going on. But we'll pick and choose a couple guys to talk about here. And actually, let's talk about this gentleman right out the gate because I didn't put him on the news because I figured it's kind of like pure speculation for now. But let's talk about Sir Joseph Votto, who has a zone swing of 71, a chase of 29, which I actually thought his chase might have been higher with how aggressive he's been at the plate as he's changed his approach recently. And he still has an over 11% barrel rate. He's got an ADP of 444. So he's been a dude that's like always sitting there staring at me in drafts, and I just don't know when or if I should take him at any point in time. What are you thinking on Joey Votto here? Because he's also getting a late start to spring, as reports, a late start to spring training.
Yeah, and so that's why we talk through this board. It's just like the context for a lot of these. Some of these guys don't have jobs. Votto in this instance, I pull up his Baseball HQ page. I see two things. I see age 39, and I see the latest injury blurb of Votto is recovering from surgery to repair a torn rotator cuff. Like neither of those, that combination of those
Not
two
good,
things, not great. So I'm cooler on Votto than I think most are. I guess he's going outside the top 400. The market's pretty cool on him. Yes, the skills last season were actually quite a bit better than for Votto than the results, but I don't know. I did not pull the trigger in labor, even in like the last round, despite some urging from the commenters throughout. And so I guess that battle test where I think I'm at with Votto. So I'm opting out of Votto for a few other names on this list.
Let's have fun with this one. New Oakland Athletic, JJ Bleday, with an ADP of 579. This is why I love these boards because the names are going to be goofy, but he has a 74% zone swing, which is pretty darn good. League average 69%. 28% chase rate, below league average, great. And a barrel rate of 8.6% in kind of limited run with the big club last year in Miami. He hasn't really produced the way most expected as a upper end prospect. He's going to be 25, 26 this year. It's an interesting profile. I'll say that much. I haven't been diving in, but if he's going to get regular at bats at 579 with those kind of plate skills, there might be a chance for something good.
Yeah, and I think and this is why this is just looking at these guys through a different lens. I think a lot of folks see the 167 batting average last year for Bleday. They see the near 30% strikeout rate, which is not great. The plate discipline actually really wasn't that bad, and a 13% walk rate. JJ Bleday did not look completely overmatched in his debut, and so now, yes, moving to Oakland from a park standpoint is less than ideal, but this is a guy who was a top 10 pick coming out of the SEC. A pretty highly regarded prospect, not like a top 25 guy or anything, but definitely caught the eyes of many scouts, and he's going to play every day in Oakland. So yes, JJ Bleday is somebody who I'm very interested in, again, because the cost is nothing. He's going to play, and you can at least see a path with this plate discipline, with the above average barrel rate, and with the prospect pedigree. Like you throw all those things together, and that builds a better case for him than a lot of other guys going outside the top 400. So
yeah, it stood out to me in a big way. That's why I wanted to bring him up. Another guy I want to bring up, we don't have to go too deep on him, but I want to bring him up for a couple reasons. Max Stassi, ADP of 548, 70% zone swing, 25% chase, 9.4% barrel. It's been rough for him. I'm not going to sugarcoat it with Max between health and just production-wise. The reason I wanted to bring him up, though, is he's got these plate discipline skills, and there was once a time where we all thought he'd be a decent offensive catcher, and he's going to be the starting catcher in Anaheim to start the season. And he's got an ADP of 548. That's the big reason I want to bring this up. Like, you got a starting catcher at 548 that maybe figures it out. Maybe he's healthy. And all of a sudden, like, oh, wow, we actually still got the guy we thought we were going to have. So I just want to bring him up real quick if you got anything on him.
Yep, nothing to add. Logan O'Hoppe gets all the hype, but yeah, Stassi, if you need a second or even third catcher, go for him. Absolutely.
Yeah. Newly minor league signed Milwaukee Brewer Luke Voit shows up on the sheet. And this one, this actually surprised me for a guy that strikes out nearly 32% of the time. He has an 81% zone swing, 34% chase, which is high, which maybe helps with the 32% K rate. But with that much zone swinging and a near 15% barrel rate, I'm shocked he strikes out that much. B, has an average of like below 230. But man, it at least kind of points to how he got it done that one year. Like there's something there if he could just do it consistently, I guess. So what's your thoughts on Voit to the Brewers just trying to make me get really scared of platoon situations?
I mean, it was the short season, but yes, Luke Voit led all of baseball in 2020 in home runs. I think the dude just swings at everything. That's why he pops at this, and maybe pitchers were throwing him in the zone more often than letting him chase. So he's just a really aggressive hitter. But Luke Voit has all the power. Like every StatCast power metric for Luke Voit is fantastic. Milwaukee's a great park. I think something would obviously have to happen to our boy Rowdy for this to work out for Luke Voit. So we would never wish that upon Rowdy. But maybe if you're into handcuffing, which is taking that back up to a position, if you go Rowdy at first base, I don't think it's that bad of a decision to pair him with a 450th overall Luke Voit. Like that actually kind of makes a little bit of sense to me.
Yeah, it definitely does. I was trying to think, okay, maybe just because he's swinging in the zone, does it really matter? Still near 77% zone contact, so he's not like he's swinging and missing that much. Yeah. On the flip side, is 34% O swing, 46% O contact. So when he swings outside the zone, he ain't touching it very often. So that's a bit disappointing when it comes to Luke Voit, but kind of makes sense at the same time.
He just takes those buttons on his jersey, unbuttons those, get the chest hair out, and swings away.
He's ready to play basketball. Anybody else you want to highlight here? Because I know we got a pitching one to go through. JD Davis checks the boxes. He's one of the most tilting guys in drafts right now because I honestly, as a Giants fan, I don't know where he's playing. Like he might platoon it for like he's not getting the strong side of a platoon right now, and that's terrifying for a guy with his talent. So he's the best guy you got on this board.
Yeah, from a skill standpoint, it's actually not even close. JD Davis blows this entire list. JD Davis swinging 80% of the time in the zone, chasing under 30% of the time with a 16% barrel rate. Like that's not just a top 400 like guy who pops. This guy, JD Davis, would pop in the top 200. The skills look that good. But yeah, Bubba, like the Giants more than anyone. I don't know. I don't see where it happens. And JD Davis, so we say this is outside the top 400. It is, but JD Davis, he's a 410 ADP. So it's that pick does count for something. It's, it's not an early pick. It's definitely a late pick, but it's not totally free. Where like some of these other guys going outside the top 500, we talked about Stassi at 550. You have absolutely nothing to lose. You have a little bit to lose by going with JD Davis. So I just love to see what 1 year of JD Davis full playing time could be. The name on this list for me is David VR.
Yep, David VR is keeping JD Davis from playing.
Yep, and from all accounts, early in Giants camp, like everything I've seen, everyone is gushing over David VR, and his skills absolutely pop on this list from a discipline and power standpoint. So if you look at this list and take one thing away, it is to draft David VR quite a bit ahead of his ADP, because I think that's going to rise pretty quickly.
Yeah, the latest thing I saw on Thursday was he put on some weight and worked on his defense even more, and he's really surprising the team defensively out there, which makes things even better. Does have a lot of swing and miss. I had Jorge Montanez on to do my Giants preview, and he made a great comp as we were talking about it, looking at his like skills. He's basically like a Matt Chapman, Eugenio Suarez type hit tool. Like he's gonna strike out a decent amount, hit for an okay average, not great, but has all the power in the world. So it could be we're talking ADP of 484. Yeah. Pretty enticing. Pretty enticing. Yeah. All right, let's talk pitching now. So what do you got for this pitching balloon board?
All right, this one's a little bit more mainstream. The last one's a little wild.
I liked it. I liked
me making something up and just calling it pitch selection. But starting pitchers outside the top 400 with kind of your a little bit more basic like indicators, things that I'm looking at. Getting whiffs. So these are guys with a swinging strike rate at league average or above for starting pitchers. a metric that we use, I know Toby uses all the time, ball percentage, just how often are you throwing balls and strikes. Anything under 37% is considered league average. And then I just took strikeout minus walk. So that combination of those three, strike K minus walk, whiff rate, and ball rate, yields a pretty interesting crop. And I'll give you the floor on this one, Bubba, because I apparently this board just listed everyone you wanted to take. Who pops for you on this?
Well, it was before I looked at the board. A guy I wanted to discuss because he has an ADP of 409 is Drew Smyly. I'm a big Drew Smyly fan. He was cruising last year until he got hurt. You never expect Drew Smyly to throw a full season. That's just not his jam. Hasn't done that since 2016 or 16. But the skills have been pretty good, and they were much, much improved last year. Below 3.5 ERA. Strikeout rate over 20%, walk rate below 6%, which is the best he's had since 2013. He's not like a world beater in any sort of the imagination, but puts the innings in there, can get you quality starts or wins. Maybe not wins in Chicago, but a great starting option this late in drafts. I'm a big Drew Smyly. I was streaming him a lot in Fab Leagues last year before he got hurt. So he stood out, and the fact he's on this list. The K to walk is, if he could just improve the strikeouts some more, it could be even better. But the improved swinging strike that it shows there, the ball percentage, explain why he's doing what he's doing. So Smyly for me.
I take offense to that wins in Chicago jab, as on my labor team, my triumvirate. I've got 3 of the top 4 Cubs hitters in the order with Happ, Dansby, and my man Cody Bellinger. So I think Drew Smyly could win 20 games, even with like a 4 ERA. I mean, that Chicago lineup is just gonna.
Oh, the biases.
A few names. Just I won't go too deep into these. And again, we'll tweet this out from the account so everyone can kind of look at it. Tyler Wells pops for me at a 535 ADP. Like, not going to get you a ton of strikeouts, but I think from like a streaming aspect, I don't think he's going to blow up that often either. He's just someone who doesn't walk anybody, throws strikes, and not to the point where he gets lit up. So Tyler Wells is someone, if I'm going late at 535. Cutter Crawford, 685 ADP. So this is, again, like one of your last picks in a 50 round draft. Cutter Crawford showed signs last year as a streamer in Boston. I don't even know if he has a rotation spot. Probably doesn't, but I'm sure will get some starts at some point. He was a name that comes out here. And then who else did I have? Nick Martinez is a little bit interesting to me because he is in San Diego's rotation. It sounds like all indications are Nick Martinez is gonna play. The risk with Nick Martinez, and again, a drawback of some of these boards without the context, is Nick Martinez did split time between bullpen and starting pitcher last year. He's a little bit better out of the bullpen, so these numbers might be a little bit inflated. But I think Nick Martinez is fine on a San Diego team that should get him some wins. So that was a name that popped out. Tariq Skubal, real quick, my last one too. He snuck up on us in the labor draft, knowing that he's starting the season hurt. If you have IL slots, if he's going late enough, almost a 500 ADP, where you can kind of stash him for a little while, Tariq Skubal could definitely be worth it in the second half.
Yeah, a couple, it's just a really fun list for specs and whatnot. I think Domingo Germán's an interesting one. I've always kind of disliked the fact he loves to give up home runs as much as he does, especially at Yankee Stadium. They did drop a bit last year to 12.1%, which is nice. And he's supposed to be locked into this rotation with the injuries that have taken place with Montas and company. So he has the lead at the rotation spot, let's put it that way. He's not locked into it, but looks like he'll be getting that 5th spot in the rotation, potentially maybe even the 4th now with the Montas injury. So I think he's interesting on this one, the fact that he does have that K to walk and whatnot. JT Brubaker's always a guy I like late in drafts. I draft him everywhere just because he eats up innings. He had a 409 ERA that his xFIP was like 3.8. He's shown really good. For a guy at that point, if you get close to a 4 ERA, that's pretty darn outstanding, honestly. Like you're happy at that ADP. and his strikeout rates have always hovered a little over 1K per nine. Like he's just been a very solid, formidable arm. It just seems to be close to. I don't know if he can ever get a breakout in Pittsburgh, but he feels like he's close. Like you see him have certain starts where he's just filthy, and then there's other starts where like he takes a step back. So I'm always a fan of him though in these draft and hold formats, even in deep 15s. I think he's got some legs at some point in time to keep an eye on. I'll stay in Pittsburgh. Johan Oviedo is one of their prospects. There was a clip, and this is what I love to see, and I say it on shows, and people say it's bad analysis, but when veterans get signed to teams, especially bad teams, I hope the veterans take these young kids under their wing and teach them things. The very first day in camp, there's videos of Rich Hill and Oviedo sitting in the dugout, and Rich Hill's teaching them a curveball. Tell me that's not a good thing for this kid. Like that's the whole point of this situation. So you throw a curveball into a very talented kid's arsenal already. That could be fun at some point in time if he gets the call up here. So those would be the big ones that stand out for me. I have to never Daniel Lynch again. I'm just not going to go there. The numbers look great, but I just can't do it. But yeah, there's a couple Pirates. I can't believe Cutter Crawford's on this list. He crushed me last year.
He was so
a starter
good too. That I remember. I think it was a Friday night. I remember this. My main event team. I streamed him.
Yeah.
I think Cutter Crawford gave up 9 runs.
Yeah, his first few starts are amazing. We were all talking about the skill sets, everything he was doing looked freaking elite, and then the other shoe fell off. It was brutal.
And again, like these guys are all like the percentage of these guys hitting is low, but we're just trying to go as deep as we can and give you all just options at this point in the draft. Like it is thin for a reason. But I think if you kind of squint and look at things a little bit different way, either with these boards or our targets, you at least could get guys that, you definitely, and you look at teams, especially in like draft and holds, teams that win overalls and that sort of thing. These are the picks where they really hit on. And so, it almost is a total crapshoot. But you still got to do it. You still got to make these picks and try. So.
And don't look at the last name on the pitcher board. That's all I'm going to say. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just because it's on the board, don't do it. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh.
So, yeah, don't do it. Just don't look at it. You guys have to see it on the Twitter account because I'm not going to mention it. It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times. We're not doing it. So we'll head to listener questions here and have some fun on this one. Taylor Johnson asks, besides Hunter Brown, are there any rookie-eligible players that you have your eyes on as potential values in drafts this year, a la Spencer Strider? Could be a hitter or a pitcher. So any potential rookies that you see coming out as let's not completely go Spencer Strider, but a productive young ball player.
Yeah, I don't think if we're talking like more the Spencer Strider path, and this is the question everyone wants to know. This is the breakout that happens. I don't think. I don't know. I'll go Taj Bradley as my just completely off the radar because that's who Strider was last year. Like he was just not even drafted. Taj Bradley has for Tampa Bay. Really hard throwing righty. He's got a huge frame. He's a big guy. Fastball is overpowering, and he has a hard slider. So there's I think those pieces that are Strider-esque that you could take a look at, and very few people are talking about Taj Bradley because again, he's probably not going to start the year in the rotation, or he's definitely not going to start the year in the rotation. This is someone who you'd try and catch lightning in a bottle like in mid-May. 555 ADP. So truly cost nothing. I would take that. That would be my pick as of now.
Well, Ryan's a much better man than I because I wasn't going to go that deep. I'm going to stay homer though and go Kyle Harrison of the Giants. I think there's a lot to like about this kid. He's only 20 years old. Super, super good lefty. People are raving. Like Logan Webb worked with them all offseason and is just raving about this kid. The Giants basically said they're expecting him to get big league run this year, which is interesting. And if he does, that could be a lot of fun. So I'm going to go Kyle Harrison and be a homer in that regard. But it'll be interesting. We'd have probably better names in 2 weeks of watching spring training and getting some buzz out of camp to have a really good idea of what guys might break out. But I'll go with Kyle Harrison on this one.
120. I'm looking him up as you in the minor league baseball analyst. 127 Ks and 84 innings at Richmond last year. Yeah,
but he's super young, and it's going to be quite a jump. So it's kind of you never know. And what I'm worried about, and again, I probably shouldn't say this out loud. He's so young and so talented. We all know it eventually happens before he can settle in. So, yeah, that's what I'm waiting for. All right. Next up on the docket here, Corey Johnson says Zach Wheeler, 2.8 ERA, 102 WHIP combined past 2 years with 247 Ks in 2021. Curious why he isn't going higher. Would love to hear your thoughts, guys. I'll be honest. Let me check something real quick. Over the last 10 days, ADP of 54. And Corey, I love the fact he's not going higher because I've been eating up Zach Wheeler as an SP2 if I don't get certain guys. But Ryan, what do you have on Wheeler that might stand out a little better than just saying I want to eat him up in drafts?
I think this is just me speculating on what the market thinks. I think it's the injuries, and I don't even know if that's a valid thing. So we talked about Wheeler at the top of the show being delayed last year. There's just a couple little repeated arm related injuries over the last year or so with Wheeler at age 33 that's my best guess. Velocity looked fine in the second half. The whiffs were down a little bit in the second half, but you're kind of nitpicking. Me personally, I just like Shane Bieber, who's going next to Zach Wheeler in ADP. I like Julio Urias a little bit more. I obviously like Kevin Gossman. I'm probably the highest in the industry on Kevin Gossman this year. I just like the alternatives a little bit more than Wheeler. But if I had to guess, it would be the injuries. And I'm not 100% sure that's correctly founded. But Wheeler's probably going to be great again.
Yeah, it's got to be the injuries. It's the only thing that makes sense to me after what we saw last year, even after the late start, 153 innings, still got 12 dubs because the Phillies are good. The ratio is his third straight season, sub-3 ERA, which is pretty darn impressive. Over a 20% K to walk back-to-back seasons. We know you like that one, Ryan. So that's a plus. The ratio of 104 whip, 101 whip the year before. The dude's getting it done. And the thing is, you mentioned some things. Bieber buzz is slowly kicking up. He could go higher than him. Urias, Gossman will probably end up going higher than him. Javier is going to keep moving up boards. Luis Castillo, people love outside of Cincinnati. Wheeler might get even cheaper, is what I'm trying to say. Over the last 10 drafts, he's gone as high as 39, as low as 62. There's a world where he can go cheaper. And I guess another thing to Corey here is we've talked about it with some of these other pitchers on different shows that after the elite guys up top, the 3 or 4 guys you want to call elite, whatever they are, the rest of these guys are really, really good. And you're just kind of separating little things here and there. So it just depends on who you're drafting with, honestly, as silly as that sounds. Wheeler, that's what shows with the range in Wheeler's picks. Somebody like Corey, you might be in a draft and love him. You might take him at 32. But then there might be a draft where no one likes him and he goes 75 because all those other pitchers go past him. Because the difference between all those guys there isn't that massive right out the gate. So you can kind of pick your poison things.
It's funny. I'm looking and you're exactly right. They're all in this giant row of starting pitchers. I'm looking at labor from Tuesday night. Wheeler went 2 picks after Max Scherzer, 1 pick after Shane Bieber to Joe Sheehan early in the 4th round. So 48th overall, before my Kevin Gossman in the 4th, before Luis Castillo, before Dylan Cease, before Jacob deGrom, as we all know.
Let's not talk about that.
Yeah. So you're right, Bubba. It is that. Yeah, Wheeler he's just in that bunch. And if you're in a draft with someone who really likes him, Wheeler will definitely shoot up. So you got to, if you really like him, you do need to jump him over a lot of the guys I just mentioned.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's take another question here. We have 2 more to go. Dynasty Junkie says Akil Baddoo, ADP of 443 in DCs for February. I'm looking in that range and I'm liking him there. Talk to me. Dynasty Junkie is very sharp on these late DC picks. I will totally 100% say that before people do the reaction Ryan just gave, because it is Akil Baddoo.
That was just pain for me on behalf of anyone else that
But what I'll say before I hand this off to you is, at that ADP, it's interesting. I'm going to say that much because you got a guy that, once again, strong side of a platoon, if not, could snag the full-time job again. He's only going to be 25 this year. He's still young. We got to remember that first time we saw him, he took this gigantic jump from like essentially single A to the bigs. His triple A time was at a different point in time. That was 2022. He took a straight up jump from single A to the bigs as a Rule 5 pick. There's some interest here, especially getting late speed if you want more than anything. So I'm not saying I love the pick, but I can see the appeal in deeper formats. What about you, Ryan?
And that's where you need to look. So a couple things I'll bring up with Baddoo is, which sample size do you trust more? 2021, 461 plate appearances for Baddoo when he hit 260, 13 homers, 18 steals? Or do you trust only 225 plate appearances of Baddoo last year of admittedly pretty bad numbers, hit 204, 2 homers, but like that's just the most recent data point. And so, I mean, Baddoo, like I would trust the 2021 line more than 2022. It's twice the sample. On top of that, in 2022, Akil Baddoo in AAA very much cut down on the strikeout rate, 20% carry rate, which he should. It's the minors, but it's not like so I talked about Josh Lowe earlier, who struck out a third of the time in the majors and also struck out a third of the time in AAA. Maybe Baddoo figured something out in AAA, hit 300 down there. So yeah, I can dig it. Like, again, at the price, it makes a ton of sense over someone who, like, at this time a year ago, what was Baddoo? 8th or 9th round pick and 15 teamers.
Big time.
And so, like, this is kind of the same guy. And I think, like, no, he probably doesn't lead off. Maybe he just hits 9th against righties to start for Detroit. But, like, the path to playing time is there. So it's I don't know. I think a lot of people were burned on Baddoo last year. The people that didn't get burned by Baddoo didn't draft him and didn't like him. He was super polarizing. But yeah, I could see it.
Yep. Like, hey, just for S's and G's, would you rather have Baddoo at like 460 or Blade at 570?
I thought you were going to go with Lowe. We could throw him in there too. I'd take Baddoo over to Lowe. I'd probably go Blade. Interesting. That's close because Baddoo would get you those steals. Blade is not going to. So
yeah,
that's a good one. Who would you go with?
I kind of lean Blade just because I think there's something we haven't seen yet. But in reality, we've seen it from Baddoo, so maybe I should go there.
That's the thing. Like, we have
seen ballparks suck. Yeah. I do think Blade hits at a better spot in the order now. Is it a better lineup? Maybe not. So that's another thing.
And Detroit's a little more hitter friendly this year. Yeah. Still not hitter friendly, but it's less pitcher friendly.
And for speed, it's been documented by Zimmerman that the 9th spot's a good spot for speed, where if Blade's in the middle of the order, it's not a good spot for speed. That's interesting. At first gut, it's Blade, but maybe the more you think about it, it should be Baddoo. That's a fun one. Very fun one. Who thought of that? Jesus. Last question. He's some kind of guy. Last question we have here is from our buddy MS at SMMS79. Who would you rather own, Ryan Noda or Jesus Aguilar? Let's take draft cost out of it to make it harder. Well, I'm not going to, just for, at least I'm going to say it. Noda's a 582 ADP over the last 10, and Jesus Aguilar is 484. It's about 100 picks apart. But if we're thinking in the season stats, is basically where this question's coming in. Do you want Ryan Noda or Jesus Aguilar in Oakland?
I mean, Aguilar. Aguilar is going to start the season at first base, and I think play pretty much all the time for Oakland. That's why they signed him. Aguilar's done it in the majors. Noda does. I mean, there are reasons to like Noda. But I mean, at the end of the day, he's a Rule 5 guy. How many Rule 5 guys actually come out and, like, yes, you hear of them, but it's really rare that they come out and make an impact. So I'll do Aguilar.
That's probably the smart move. It's probably the smart move. I'm leaning Noda here, but I guess my brain just can't take the don't take the draft price out of context part. But I've actually been drafting Noda lately. I drafted him in the DC we did together. He's a very high interest to me. The more I listen to like people that know prospect stuff more than me, A's people that know more than me. Carlos Marcano talks very highly of Ryan Noda. He's first base outfield. He's got the multi-position, so he could still play every day too, in theory. Blade coming over kind of tampered some of that. But the power that Noda has, he's a Rule 5 pick, so he's basically got to play. I'm going to go with Noda here. I'm going to take my chance on the kid because the A's, if anything, they could cut Jesus Aguilar and it wouldn't cost them anything. He was so cheap. Or they could trade him. Where Noda, they might want to see what they got and go from there. So then against the A's, why would they do anything smart? I have no idea. But I'm going to go Noda just for fun. Could be totally wrong there.
The Dodgers did trade for Noda back in 2021, so
and they know what's up.
Something. I don't know.
They always
good name.
know what's up. Very good name. Fun one to remember. Bunch of fun names here. End-game targets. Past 400 ADP. Final thoughts, Ryan, as we wrap up another wonderful edition of Bubba and the Bloom.
No, we got to start thinking of new topics next week. So we're done with our ADP pockets. I think we got 5 or 6 episodes out of it. Really fun exercise to do. I know with 400 plus, we're just kind of throwing stuff at the wall. But hope everyone enjoyed those those earlier episodes, specifically about going different spots in the draft and where positions and where categories are strong and that sort of thing. But again, at 400, you're throwing darts. I would say speculate on the skills over the role at this point and hope that, as bad as it sounds, hope that injuries happen or hope that the guys you're speculating on fall into a role. And again, you hit on maybe 4 or 5 of these guys, you're in good shape. So hopefully tonight, some of the names we dropped, we'll do that for you.
Yeah, let's hope so. It's a fun part of the draft. It's like you said, throwing it at the wall and seeing if it sticks part of the draft. But this is where you win a lot of these big leagues because DCs and NFBC 50s draft and hold formats, they seem fun and they are. But man, a lot of it's just longevity and depth. Just how long can you keep the at bats accumulating? That's why guys talk about at bats. That's why they'll take some boring picks late. Like, hey, that's why I mentioned Max Stassi just from like he's going to start. Like those are called at bats. Last time I checked, and that's why I said it's hard to draft JD Davis because at that price, how many at bats is he really going to get? And it's just like it adds up in the end. So we'll see. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We have our next podcast will be in March. Yep,
that's March. Right.
It's already coming up March 2nd. So guys, get ready for that. It's going to be a blast. We are in the heart of draft season. If you have any questions, hit Ryan up on Twitter at RyanBHQ, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod. I'm on Twitter at BDintric. This was Bubba and the Bloom, episode 44. Catch y'all next time.